from the surgical buddy program here at the hospital with another one of our panelists, Jamie, who was a really great resource. So I'm excited to share thoughts and my perspective amongst this great panel, but would really encourage any of you who have questions. This is a time to ask the embarrassing or the, I don't know who to ask, but I have this question. Maybe someone who lives with this might have perspective. We're here to answer those and share some best practices we have.
Are we introducing each other, or are we just going to talk?
Just introduce yourself.
Okay. So my name is John Bear, and I've had a J pouch for 25 years. This past Saturday, here with Dr. Robin McLeod. Thank you, Robin. And before that, for 20 years, I had an ileostomy, subtotal colectomy from Sunnybrook. And my coping mechanisms we'll talk about soon, but it's been a great ride. And if all this hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I was diagnosed with colitis in 2010, had an ileostomy made in 2012, which was then made permanent in 2018. So I've had my ostomy for just over 11 years now. I have been part of this Mount Sinai group ever since then, and really happy to be a part of the buddy program. So to echo what Kim was saying, let this be a time that you throw any questions our way. Nothing is too embarrassing or off limits. So by all means, please don't be shy.
Hi, everyone. We're so glad that you're able to join us tonight, whether in person or online. My name's Caroline. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and had my large intestine removed surgically after a very long period of failing medical therapies. I had a temporary ileostomy and had a pelvic pouch, which I am almost to 21 years on. So I've also had some other challenges. IBDs affected my body in other areas. Probably one of the most challenging is I have a spinal arthritis, sacroiliitis. So I'm happy to share my experiences. I would say that I'm doing quite well, medically managed, as well as having my pelvic pouch. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. I was really appreciative of my buddies earlier on. I asked a lot of embarrassing questions that kind of were about daily life or how to, how people were living and dealing with some of their challenges. So we're all very, open and happy to sharing our experiences, and hopefully, maybe we might be able to talk a little bit about some of the questions that you might have. And I'm hoping to learn new things from you guys too. I'll pass it back to Kim.
Yeah, so we've got a few panelists who are also joining us by Zoom. So Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay.
Kevin,
there we go. Hi there. I'm Kevin, and with me is my charming wife, Wendy. 30 years ago, I guess I had had pretty bad ulcerative colitis, so I had my colon removed. For 10 years, I had a pelvic pouch. I just wasn't one of the ones it was going to work for. So for 20 years, I've had a permanent ileostomy that is just the best thing ever. Totally drug-free. I do anything I want. I go anywhere I want when I'm allowed. And life is great. And Wendy is the ultimate support person.
Yeah, I'm the support person that's watched them go through good times and bad. That was one of our wedding vows, so check. And right now it's all good. So the ileostomy has just given back a quality of life that is immeasurable and wonderful.
Thanks both. And Barbara, over to you. You're muted, Barbara.
Okay. I call myself a veteran of Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed when I was 21. I'm now 76. So it's over 50 years, and it's been a long haul. And I'm doing fine. Been through a lot of surgeries, a lot of medications. And right now, Stelara seems to be working, touch wood. So I'm happy about that. I also have a son who was diagnosed when he was 8, and he's now 51. So we've been through a lot of the ins and outs, the goods and bads, the challenges of having Crohn's disease chronically lifelong. So anybody who has Crohn's or has questions about Crohn's, I'm always happy to share some of the insights I've had over the years.
Barbara, thank you. Perfect. So maybe to kick things off, am I sounding? To kick things off, we'd love to see if there are any questions from those in the room who would like. You welcome to throw up your hand virtually, or if you'd like to throw it in the chat. We have lots that we can talk about, but ultimately this is a session for you. So before we dive into topics, happy to see if there's any burning questions that anyone here has. We'll give it a minute there. But while we wait for those questions to come in, is there any topic that anyone's got burning that they'd like to talk on first?
I think it would be great if Sheldon introduced
My
himself
assumption with the
too.
panel was that we were going to speak for 5 or so 8 minutes just about our coping mechanisms or whatever was burning.
Great.
So I think I'll take the chance to start out with just what my coping mechanisms were. And it sounds like a broken record, but for 25 years I've been coming here talking about finding what works for you. Everybody's different. For me, it was cycling initially after the colitis diagnosis and the ileostomy, and then finally getting the pelvic pouch done here in 1999. Took on a running career. So for me, it was a de-stressor. It kept my energy up. I was lucky enough because of this J-pouch and the lack of any major complications not to be on any medication. So that was really, really very fortuitous. And allowing me to, run these marathons and keep active, I think was probably the key for me. And I might not have ever gotten around the globe and done all these marathons if I hadn't had what happened to me, going from being incontinent to continent, and being very appreciative of that and having it work for me so well. For me, it was a godsend. So that's my major suggestion to the folks out there who are going through the initial stages or even partway through. We're still trying to cope today. I mean, every day is a new day. It's not ever easy because of our particular issues in the bowel. But if you can just keep a positive attitude and find what works, remember, thoughts are things, keep that process going. I think it work for me, and I think it can work for most of you. So that's my major kind of suggestions for the people out there who are looking for reasons to be able to cope and how they can do that. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, John. Beth, I think I saw your hand. Beth, please go for it. Go. We cannot hear you. Pardon? Beth, as you type your question, thank you. We've got another question, so we're going to take that while you type your question in, and sorry for the tech challenges here. But a question we got for anyone with ostomies: how do you manage weight gain and the flange leaking? Anyone want to tackle that one, either virtually or here in person? Jamie, can I throw it to you?
Yeah. Okay, I would say in my experience with the buddy program, one of the most frequently asked questions is about, is it going to leak? Is it going to fall off? What's that going to look like? Is it going to smell? So I'm happy to tackle those questions. So I have been using the exact same products, Coloplast products, for almost 12 years. My first suggestion would be to reach out to Coloplast and thank you, Ulster, who I don't use, sorry. And get all the samples that you can and figure out what works for you. And everybody's different. So in that sense, just get a bunch of things, try it all out. So in the 12 years that I've been using my Coloplast products, I have maybe had the misfortune of a leak a dozen times. So if you average that out over 12 years, that's pretty good. And stool is acidic. So it's going to, you're going to feel it. It's going to give you like a little tingling sensation. So if I'm walking around in some kind of attire, I've never experienced an instance where it's just fallen off my body. I would say that's a very unrealistic likelihood in the life of an ostomate. It's just going to fall off your body. You're going to have some kind of a heads up, a notice, an itch, a something. So my recommendation is always to have supplies on hand in your car, in your bag, wherever you're going, so that at any given time, you have that peace of mind in knowing that if you have an instance where you're going to have a leak or a blowout, as we like to call it, it's never as bad as it sounds, and you're going to have a heads up, and you're going to have time, and you're going to get to the washroom, and everything is going to be fine. And you're going to get to a point in your life like me, where after 12 years, you don't even think about it anymore. It just becomes a part of your body that's attached to you. And if you find yourself in the situation where you have to run to the bathroom and do a change because there's been a leak, you'll have done this so many times routinely in your week or day or life that you just know what you need to do and how to change it, and it kind of just becomes routine. So I would say that a leak is not the most common thing to happen if you find products that work for you. And if it does happen, you're going to get a little bit of a notice in time. So you're not going to be in an instance where you're just walking down the street and it's just going to fall off your body. So that is now something 12 years into this that I never think about. I literally never, ever think about it. And if it does happen, which again, maybe a dozen times in 12 years, I'm going to get that little itch. I'm going to get that little heads up, and I'm going to get to the bathroom with plenty of time to spare because I have a spare, and I'm going to make the change and everything is going to be completely fine. So I hope that answers that question.
Maybe just to add to that too, Jamie, that clean skin on your bag change day is probably one of the most important factors in getting long wear out of your appliance. Like if you just pull a flange off and kind of stick a new one on there, all the old adhesive will be there. Like it's important that that area be clean. I usually do mine in the shower, so I make sure it's clean, it's dry. When I put the new flange on, it's not my skin's not coated with powder or anything like that. So it's one of those things. Clean skin equals longevity.
The other thing I just thought I would add to what why do I echo and you didn't echo? I don't understand that.
Sina, you're muted again.
Weird. So I thought I'd also just share that I got the great advice from Jamie about always walking around with something. So in my purse, I just thought I'd show you what I carry. It's literally a bag, a garbage bag, a little remover wipe, some gauze to help clean this space if I'm in the bathroom, don't know what kind of toilet paper it is. It's just something that I use at home, so it makes me feel better. A protective skin barrier wipe if I need it, and then a bag. It's super flat. It goes in whatever purse I've got. It's with me all the time. And in the 18 months I've had my stoma, I've never had to use it, but there's peace of mind there, which is helpful. Jamie, you wanted to add something else?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I made a video, not a graphic one, but of all the products that I use and the way that I use them and how I carry them with me. So if you want it, I can circulate that around to anybody that is interested. And to Kim's point, I have all the very similar products in my purse right beside me that I also haven't used and just collect dust, waiting for that special day. So.
Yeah, John, okay.
No, not having had an ileostomy for 25 years, but when I had it, and for the 20 years, what I decided to do is not wait for the itch. And I would change it more regularly. And that way I didn't have that potential for it to be a burn. So if I could get 4 or 5 days out of it, back then there was all kinds of different pieces. I mean, you're just a mad hatter trying to put it together. Now you can kind of just put it on, it's a lot easier. But then I decided, you know what, after 3 days, I'm going to change it because it's just degrading, and I don't want to feel that itch, and I don't want to get to the point where my skin becomes burning. So that's just a thing that worked for me for the last 10 years, but it took me 10 years to figure it out. And I hear the supplies are a lot more expensive now. So.
Yes. Nat, over to you.
Hi, I have a lot of questions, so I'll start with one and then it can bounce back to me at any time. But I guess I have questions about pain for people with J pouch and with ostomy. Like, do you have phantom pain in your missing colon, or like, if you have a J pouch, do you continue to have pain in like what's left of your rectum, or like, is the J pouch itself painful? Do you have IBS type pain because you're trying to use your small intestine like the large intestine, or like, is it painful to bounce around when your ostomy bag is full and it's like pulling on your skin and stuff like that? And just like, what is the pain landscape?
Hi, Nat. I'm Caroline. I can help with the J pouch questions. So I've had my J pouch now for just over 20 years, actually, and I'm thrilled with it. It's been such a great experience for me. Having said that, there was a bit of a learning curve at the beginning. I wouldn't say that I've ever had phantom pain. Every once in a while, even now to this day, I'll get a small muscle cramp, sometimes where my temporary ostomy site was, but it's never anything burdensome, and it's not a terribly painful cramp. So if I'm out in public, I'm not having to grimace or make faces. No one else would know, but I might just kind of tenderly push on it a little bit just to ease it. But that's really the only pain that I've experienced. I haven't experienced any rectal pain. In terms of how my pouch functions, there was a pretty good learning curve for the first year. But by saying that, it doesn't mean that I was having issues or that I couldn't do activities that I wanted to do, pretty shortly after having surgery. So I would say maybe for the first couple weeks, I stayed just in my home just because I was trying to get used to everything and figure out how everything was going to work. And then I slowly started making small trips, maybe, to a friend or to a location where I knew where the washroom was, just more for peace of mind than anything. Because at the very beginning, I probably was going to the washroom more frequently because you're trying to train your pouch, right? So over time, your pouch will expand and you can hold stool for longer periods and you don't have to go quite so frequently. So I would say that my pouch continued to improve, probably over that span of a year. And once I kind of got to the year, then it's been pretty consistent ever since. But really within the first maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I was out and about and doing what I wanted to, just maybe had to go to the washroom a little bit more frequently than today.
The output burn?
I also just want to say, oh, Nat, please keep going.
Sorry, I was like, does the output burn? I heard that it's like more liquidy or like more acidic, or like hurts your skin more because it's coming out like before it's had a chance to turn into a formed stool.
Yeah. Is that okay? Okay. So from the perspective of someone with a pelvic pouch, not really. I tend to eat a wide variety of things, so I kind of tend to think of it as whatever I could eat prior to the surgery when I wasn't in a flare-up mode, which was almost everything really. I continue to eat now, so the spicier, the better, and I really truly mean that. I'm happy to have a glass of wine. I love raw vegetables and salads and all of those sorts of things. And I really don't have any pain or any burning or anything like that. It is diet dependent. So the more I eat raw vegetables or spicy things, probably the more that I might have to go to the washroom, or more frequently, or I would say urgently, but maybe just a little faster than other times. But it's nothing that really I'm noticing or that I'm planning for or have to avoid. Probably when those things happen, I just kind of subconsciously modify my diet slightly to eat things maybe that have more soluble fiber. So maybe I have some bananas or some cheese or something, that will kind of help regulate it.
Awesome. I also just want to say,
Matt, to
Kevin and
further
Wendy
and-
or Barbara, if you ever want to answer the question that's being posed or want to add on to what's being shared, just throw your hand up so we know to call on you. Kevin, I see you. So we'll go to Kevin next. And then Paul, I appreciated that you said that you've had some phantom bowel movement pain. So if you've got any perspective there, we'll come to you after Kevin and Wendy. And then Tony, we see your hand up. So we'll come to you. That'll be the order of things next. But Kevin and Wendy, over to you.
Matt, just a quick addition to the diet. If when I had my pouch, if I went out and ate a dozen wings and had a beer, my bum was going to pay for it for about a day or two after. So what goes in has a bit of a, you were asking about pain and bum, that kind of thing. That's the only thing with the pelvic pouch that kind of dictated issues, what I put in my body. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Kevin. And Paul, anything you wanted to add there?
Can you hear me now? Yes, no?
Loud and
Hold
clear.
on. There we go. Sorry, I'm having I'm now joining on my iPhone. My computer's having issues. I have a permanent ileostomy. I still have phantom bowel movements. It's sort of like what Kevin said, where it depends on what you eat. So anything too rich in carbs, too spicy, too not according to your normal diet, I find that's around the time that I'll get these like weird phantom bowel movements, and it just feels kind of, I don't know, comes and goes. I had colitis, have a permanent ileostomy, also have Crohn's. It can also be when I have a Crohn's flare up. So that's, yeah, I guess phantom bowel movement, just in my own research, can be caused by a variety of things or nothing.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Tony, you had your hand up earlier. Did you still want to ask a question? You just see.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tony. I've been diagnosed since 2005 with ulcerative colitis. I'm hopefully getting out of a flare-up, trying to cycle between drugs, currently on Xeljanz. However, I still haven't exhausted all my drugs options. I still haven't tried the big players, Entyvio or Stelara. Anyway, I've met with Dr. Brar from Mount Sinai, and my GI recommended as well just to have a meet and greet with a surgeon, because I was just expressing as well my mental, it's also the mental effect of the disease. And sometimes you just get tired of hey, I'm in remission, then you got a flare up, remission again. So I'm considering surgery. And after my meeting with the surgeon, then he asked me a question. There's an option, which is either a permanent stoma or a J pouch. But my question is, if we could just, an answer to such a question could consume the entire session, but J pouch versus a stoma. From a stoma, I think it's more, you don't have any more colitis. The entire colon is removed. You just have a stoma. You could change it. You could hold it. And with a J pouch, okay, it's internal. There's nothing sticking out. But at the same time, with a J pouch, you might get pouchitis. So I don't have any idea about how to tackle pouchitis. They mentioned you need an antibiotic, when you get antibiotic, it's not like the same treatment as ulcerative colitis. It's not like you have to wait for a 6 month to kick in, try a new biologic, try prednisone. So my question is just if we can just frame it quickly. I don't want to consume the entire bandwidth of the session, but what's it like? Especially we have veterans here with J pouch and with stoma. So what's your experience here? Any resource, any insights that could help me? I'm leaning more towards a J pouch, but at the same time, it's such a black box, this decision. And it's any insight, any experience, any story could help.
Thanks, Tony, for your question. We'll come to John first, and then Kevin, I see your hand, and then we'll come back into the room here and get you lots of perspective, Tony.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony. Some really good questions and things to consider. In my particular situation, I only had ulcerative colitis. So when they took the large bowel out, the option was to rehook me up later on. The J pouch, I've probably had very luckily only maybe 3 pouchitis situations. I do take a probiotic, and when I eat, I take some enzymes because they took the gallbladder out as well. Apparently, there was some mixed stones, and Dr. McLeod didn't want those to be released. What they did for me is my first phase was 20 years. The second phase was just hook them all up and away we went. So for me, it took about a year to get used to, but you have to be careful. I had to be careful about certain foods, and if I'm not, then the burning pain does occur in the anal region. But I mean, I wouldn't change my decision at all having had the J pouch. It really enabled me to have more freedom from my perspective. And although I know there are full Ironman folks out there who have ileostomy or who have colostomies or ileostomies, for me, having that being put back to being continent was a godsend. So it was well worth it. The first year was getting used to the new plumbing was kind of tough, but pouchitis, it was rare for me, and just preventatively, I take no medication right now. So here I'm in my 74th year and still rocking it, still practicing as a chiropractor, still being very active and very thankful. Yeah.
What about the frequency? Oh, sorry. I just want to follow up just as well with that. I'm really interested in the J pouch as well. The frequency, I mean, the surgeon mentioned they consider a successful J pouch operation is the frequency between 6 times and 8 times a day. And I should be expecting, let's say I can hold it for like 3 hours, because the first thing I asked the doctor, I'm like, when I flare up, I'm afraid to go on a 10-minute drive while I'm driving. I mean, hitting the 401 here, and imagine like I need to go to the bathroom, and it's dangerous. So it's like it's anxiety inducing. So about the frequency and how long can you hold it? Is it like, does it gonna affect your daily activities? Let's say you're in the airport, you know, and all these kind of public places. What's the experience here?
I think what Caroline was mentioning, and that's 21 years and me at 25, you learn to have the pouch expand a bit, so you don't just go with the first sense that there's that sense to go. And you know, I don't even know how many times I go. I just go when I go, and I don't even focus on it. And then I just go back to my busy life doing all the things that I do. So I've never had a count thing in my own mind. I'm not going 20 times a day, but I'm not going once or twice. So usually after a meal takes a while. The time that it takes, the transit time has gotten a little less as I've had the pouch longer and longer. But during my marathons, I would be running for 4 hours and never have to worry at all about it. So I mean, you just learn how to feed it and also how to cope with it. It's a process.
Barbara, excuse me, Kevin and Wendy, do you want to add your perspective there?
Hi, Tony. Yeah, I had a J pouch for 10 years. However, I was the half of 1%. So my surgeon told me that it wasn't going to work. And I had some precancer cell activity. So finally, after 10 years and lots more, yeah, both my parents had colon cancer. So, you know, it was one of those things. I'd been back on, you know, immunosuppressants, prednisone, probiotics, you name it, while I had my pelvic pouch. But however, even with the pelvic pouch, I still was doing okay. I couldn't really travel much, but I still skied and led a life. However, 20 years ago, when I finally got my complete full ileostomy, my bum sewn up, all that stuff, life just opened up for me. I could eat anything I want. I'd mountain bike, I ski, I downhill ski, I hike, literally do anything I want, travel. I can sit on an airplane and not worry if I'm going to kind of pinch something off in my pants, that type of thing. So for me personally, the ileostomy has been fantastic, but you could talk to 50 people. John's a perfect example with the J pouch. It worked great for him. I was just one of the ones that didn't work. However, if you're thinking of a permanent ileostomy, and I know quite a few people that have gone that route, it does give me a fantastic lifestyle. The only thing is, you know, I've got a bag on my abdomen. Now, I don't think that's a big deal. And, you know, at my age, I'm not trying to date or anything. I've got my date right here. So, you know, it's a two-way street. So, I mean, it's a tough decision on your part. Totally sympathize with you. And here's one thing. If you go with a J pouch and it didn't work out for you, hopefully it would, you could go to a permanent ileostomy, which is what I ended up doing. So, you know, there is a
There's a fallback
second option. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
Oh, I've got some feedback. Okay, I think we're ready. No, there's still feedback. What? Yeah. Hello?
There's still some echo.
So, sorry, all, just give us a second with the tech here.
Sheldon? Sheldon, could you talk about your experiences too? Because you've had years of dealing with IBD and all the different things that you've tried to do to keep yourself going and your family going.
Yeah, well, I started surgeries in 1953. I've had about 6 or 7 all along. But I haven't reached the point, I still have a little tiny bit of small bowel, so I still manage without having to consider J-pouch or ileostomy. And it's not easy when you only have about a meter of small bowel, but I've managed. Like John says, you learn to deal with the situation. You don't think about it, you get used to it. And that's the trick. You know, if you let it control you, then you'll always have anxiety. But if you try and stay on top of it and not think of it, then you tend to manage no matter what the consequences are.
You should tell them with Crohn's.
And
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have Crohn's, colitis, or both? I can't remember that.
just Crohn's.
Just
Crohn's, same as
It's
me.
enough.
Yeah.
It's
As many years as I have, I think.
in
Yeah.
1953, on my first surgery, they had no clue what they were dealing with.
Yeah.
I doubt that there was a GI department anywhere that really was sophisticated or knowledgeable. And they dealt with symptomatic surgery. I had a huge abscess, they took it out, and that was it. And I wasn't diagnosed until 1979. So from 53 to 79, I dealt with a lot of symptoms, but, and it took 2 years to be diagnosed with Crohn's in 1979. So I think it's easier these days to be properly diagnosed, but my experience was really sort of slow.
talk about your lifestyle.
Slow and agonizing. I mean, we travel a lot. You know, like
you told me at some point that you also go on cruises a lot because it's a way of controlling your environment.
we go on a lot of cruises, and our son, who's a doctor, has advised us to reconsider. We went on 3 cruises in October and February, and I had COVID for about a day and a half.
You had a lung issue.
Whatever. But Fran had pneumonia more recently, so she had COVID. And so our son is asking us to reconsider taking cruises because it's a good environment for aerial bacterial catching. But it's a wonderful way to travel because you really get you have an environment that seems to be well controlled and easy to handle. I mean, I've been very fortunate in that you know, we've traveled to every part of the world and I've never had an issue. Luckily, when I have an issue, it's when I get back home. I don't know whether that's luck or stupidity, but we've managed very well, and And I think we're going to continue to cruise because it's a very convenient way for people with any medical condition to travel. Takes away a lot of the, I mean, some people like the adventuresome nature of travel. And we've done both, you know, and I think at this stage of our lives, you know, it's almost like the Seinfeld series. It's a story about nothing. We like to travel with no agenda and just enjoy it.
So Sheldon, so what you're saying as well is even after removing the colon, for example, if it's either a stoma, a permanent stoma, or actually a J pouch, is the mental state still has to be factored in. Like whenever you have your still colon, if it's Crohn's or colitis, it's always people are saying no one knows. Like maybe it's stress, you know, you're being stressed out, you're being burnt out from a lot of work. Does it still affect as well, even if you're having a post-surgery, a J pouch, or a stoma? Is it still a factor that it's going to affect as well your digestive tract?
Well, there's no doubt you have to, you know, be prepared for different possibilities, and you have to, you know, anticipate what might happen. And you know, it's good to belong to a group like this where you can talk to people and get some advice for people who have been through it, because you know you're at the start of your journey, and you need advice from people who have been through the process and considered different outcomes and managed different outcomes. So I think you know that in 1979 they didn't have this kind of group, so there was really no one to talk to. You know, we just went into this blind, and you know, it can be a very anxious situation if you don't have a community of others to discuss and get some advice for. So I think you know, that's going to probably be your best support, is a support group that can give you some examples of what they went through. So, you know, it helps you anticipate what might lie ahead and what choices to make.
And it's not just for you. If you have a partner, when Shelley was diagnosed, I had no one to talk to. I had no friends, no family who had the experience. And when I tried to talk to Shelley's doctor, he had no answers and he had no time for me. So I needed someone in social work, and I wasn't directed to anyone. There was a big gaping hole in all the questions I had and nowhere to turn to, except at that point it was books, and they were very limited. Now there's so much more out there. Aside from Mount Sinai Support Group, you've got the internet, and you've got network of other people who've had the experience. But it's not just you who's going through it. Family members, your children, they go through it as well. So I think we've made a lot of advances through Mount Sinai in being able to turn to people and ask questions. Every case is different, but at least you've got people who have gone through the experience and can, like now, talk to you and give you their perspective. Like Shelley functions, he may not function perfectly, but he manages. And I think a lot of it has to do with your attitude. His attitude has changed significantly. And I think the start of it was coming out and talking to people. And believe me, he would never have joined the Mount Sinai support group if I hadn't pushed him, held his hand, and gone with him. So it's not just you, it's the people around you as well, that this condition, and really any health condition, you don't go through it alone.
And if I can give you one final very good piece of advice, make sure that your doctor is almost equally or more interested in patient care rather than research. Because my first doctor was more interested in research. He was a terrible patient care doctor. And that really adds to a lot of anxiety and frustration. If you have the wrong doctor, you can have all the support you need in the world, but you need the doctor to make the final call. And if he's focused on research, it's time to find another doctor.
Hi, Tony. So as you heard from all of our different participants here, this is kind of the beauty of the group, is really sharing personal experiences. So I do see that we have a number of other hands up. I'll just quickly respond to some of your original questions from the pelvic pouch perspective. I really struggled when I was making my decision too, because it is, you know, a lifelong decision, so to speak. But if your doctors have offered you both options, my personal recommendation is that I really don't think that there's a wrong choice. I've met so many people who have had a permanent ileostomy. I've met so many people that have a pelvic pouch. And on both sides of the fence, you know, people are living really full, happy, productive lives. So I think it just really, there is a learning curve, you know, either way, right? Because your body's been changed. But I think it just comes down to personal preference in what you are looking for. So for me, I really wanted to have a pelvic pouch. You know, as Kevin said, the way I looked at it was, you know, if I went down that road and it didn't work out, you know, in my case, I could turn to a permanent ileostomy. I have been really happy with my pelvic pouch. I have had pouchitis a few different times. It feels like the onset of a flare-up. So that's what alerted me, because while you do go to the washroom more frequently, you don't have that same sense of urgency as you do during a flare-up. And I can hold it if I choose. Just like John, it doesn't interfere with my daily life. I'm not counting how many times I'm going to the washroom. In fact, you know, if I don't disclose to people that I have IBD, like, they don't know why I'm going into a washroom and what I'm doing in there. So I don't think anybody thinks that I'm going really more than anyone else. So I haven't found that that's impacted my life. You know, do I have a different experience than someone who has a completely 100% healthy GI tract? Yes. You know, am I really glad that I got rid of mine that wasn't working? Yes. You know, I'm living a really happy, you know, wonderful life, you know, going forward. And like Shelley and Fran and everybody else on this group, I love to travel all the time. But let's get over to Alfred and Nat, because I see that they have their hands up.
Yeah, so Alfred, we're going to come to you next. Nat, we're going to come to you, and then Jagtar, we see your question in the chat. We will come there as well. We're thrilled that there are so many questions. We'll definitely tackle these three, and if we have time, we'll try for one or two more before we're going to be at the top of the hour here. So Alfred, over to you.
Hi there. Thank you all for sharing your experiences. Really appreciate it. Very similar to everyone, I was diagnosed with kind of colitis in 2010, and I had I'm kind of 3 months post-op of a ileostomy. And for me, it was mostly for dysplasia from my colitis. It was also not well controlled, but I kind of lived with it. But I had dysplasia, and I'm curious if, you know, maybe Kevin may be the most helpful here, but so they found some dysplasia, and then they took out my colon. I'm kind of thankful that they did, because I feel so much better now, just with the ileostomy. And I'm quite actually surprised how happy I am with it. But it seems to me that still most people go ahead with the J pouch. I'm wondering, you know, if you go back, if you have a J pouch and then you go back to an ileostomy, does it function similar, or did you lose a little bit of function when that happens? And what's the consideration when you go to a J pouch of kind of dysplasia or rectal cancer in the leftover bit? And for those of you who do have J pouch, how often are you being screened or monitored for rectal kind of dysplasia or rectal cancer? How serious of a consideration is that for you, as opposed to with a permanent ileostomy?
Thanks, Alfred. Barbara, did you want to?
I wanted to respond to a question by Jagtar. I think that's your name.
We're going to get Jagtar's question in a few minutes, Barbara, so we'll definitely call on you.
Okay,
We're going to
because
start with Alfred,
yeah,
if that's okay.
Hardin wanted me to answer that question. I don't think I can answer it, but I think we should raise it.
We'll certainly get there, absolutely. Just wanted to make sure we're doing it in order of people throwing their hands up. So
Sure.
Alfred or Kevin, yeah, please go for it.
Hi, Alfred. As someone who went from a less than ideal J pouch to an ileostomy, it was like a new world for me. Um, like I can do anything I want. There's no urgency. Now, just to put it into perspective, my J pouch that wasn't really good, I was going minimum 15 times a day on all sorts of drugs because the small little rectal cuff that was left hooking up to my bum was still infected. And although I was diagnosed with Crohn's, ever since for the 20 years I've had my permanent ileostomy, zero flare ups, zero drugs. I eat anything I want. I do anything I want. It's just been a great experience. So I don't know if that helps at all.
And you,
And go ahead, Wen.
no, I was just gonna say, both of Kevin's parents had colon cancer. So he was in an extremely high risk for his little cuff. It also depends on your genetics, how high an incidence there is. But for Kevin, Dr. McLeod had said to him at one point, it isn't if, it's when for you. But that's for him.
Actually, when I asked her what's the chances of this developing to cancer, she said, "Are you stupid? Both your parents had colon cancer. Get rid of it. Get healthy." And that's what I did. So
And it was like being reborn for him because his pouch had chronic pouchitis. Like he's that half of a 1%. But yet, Caroline, it worked wonderfully. Like John, it works wonderfully. So don't take Kevin's experience with the J pouch, take his experience with the ileostomy, because that's given us our life back.
most people's
Thanks, guys.
pouches work quite
Nat,
well.
over to you and your question. Thanks for your patience. You're muted. There you go.
There you go. It's an awkward question, so you can pass if you want, but it is ask anything, so I'm gonna ask anything. I want to ask about sex because that has actually really been a huge problem in like since I was diagnosed 4 years ago and pretty much haven't been able to have sex the whole time because like if you just think about the mechanics, the ulcers are like right there. And so I think a lot about like what life could be like on the other side of either one of these surgeries. And then I'm like, maybe if you have a J pouch, it's like painful because you have like scar tissue in the area or things are attached wrong or like your pelvic region feels weird or empty or like not like yourself. Or then when I think about it with an ileostomy, there's all these other problems. I'm like, can you be active like that? I know you're not supposed to like lie on your side. Is it like pulling on your skin? Do you smell? Is it weird to like have a bag of poop around when you're trying to have sex with someone? Or like, does your pelvic region feel like it's not having the full experience because you don't have a butthole? Like, I don't know, like just, I want all the gross details if you're comfortable sharing them.
Hey, hi, Nat. I love this question. I love it. And if you want to get really detailed, we can take it offline. You can send me an email. I've had mine again for 12 years. I got it 3 weeks before my 26th birthday. So you can do the math. I won't say it out loud. I have been in and out of relationships over the course of those 12 years. So I've had lots of experiences in trying out different conversations around what that looks like the first time that you are, getting intimate with a new partner. And I will say overall, my experience in people's perception or reception of sharing is that they are like, oh, wow, I actually know somebody who also has that. And then you get to have a whole conversation around it. And the taboo just really goes away. So it's a disease that we live with in secret, which is such a shame because I feel like we're all just a few degrees of separation from somebody who has it. So once you practice talking about it, once you practice exposing yourself, it becomes something that isn't so scary, and it opens up a level of vulnerability. And if somebody is like repulsed by you, which has never been my experience, but if, you know, that's just not a person that you want to be doing that with anyway. So if you want to have like a conversation one-on-one about what, you know, what that conversation could look like, or like, you know, it's not a painful experience or any of those types of things, like we can get into the nitty gritty, or anybody else that wants to have that conversation with me. I am not shy by any stretch, but I don't know how how much everybody on the receiving end wants to know about me and my experiences. So don't be shy. I'm really glad you asked, because a lot of people don't, but I'm happy to have that conversation with you offline, or anybody else that wants to ask. So hopefully that helps.
So I'm just going to say a couple words that I thought were enlightening that an ostomy nurse had shared with me. And that was crotchless panties. So, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can consider. I do think that honestly, what Jamie said is probably the most important, is just being open and honest and having some sort of conversation before you get to that point, and figuring out if that is, you know, a person that you want to take things further with. But really and truly, for any activity, no matter what it is, I feel so much healthier and happier now than when I had my colon and I was uncomfortable and in a flare up and rushing off to the bathroom, and I never knew what the day was going to look like, let alone hour by hour. So yeah, I think that we're all pretty open and pretty happy in terms overall of how our physical status is. And you know what, I mean, everybody, I don't want to speak for everybody, I'll speak for me. Just in general, like, sure, I can have an off day. Anybody can have an off day, whether they have IBD or not. But the number of times that I have an off day is truly that, like, it's, you know, not happening very frequently. And just as a quick update as to having pouchitis, I know everybody has a different experience with it. Mine is very well managed on antibiotics. So I do take, it's not the standard antibiotic that you would take for a cold or, you know, that sort of thing. So I'm on it long term, which I know is changing the subject a little bit, but yeah, hopefully that answered some of your questions.
Love the candor and the best practices here. We have 5 minutes left. We're going to try and get to 3 questions. So we're going to try and keep our answers short, direct, and efficient, because I've loved how much is coming in. So we wanted to go to Jagtar, who asked a question in the chat, who said, I got an ileostomy last October and seems like I gain weight sometimes quickly. Is that something normal for someone with an ileostomy? And will it be easy enough to lose weight? So Barbara's had her hand up to respond and comment here. And then we've also got Brenda, who's going to share a little bit of some resources that are available to outpatient. So Barbara, over to you.
I can't actually answer that question because I've never had a problem with too much weight. My problem has always been too little weight. So I think I have to hand that to somebody else who might have that problem, who might understand what to do about it.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. Kevin, did you have perspective you wanted to share there?
Yeah, I mean, I fluctuate a little bit with weight, but 90% of that is strictly diet for me, depending what I eat. If I eat a lot of starches, well, I know I'm going to gain weight. It can somewhat affect, like, as I get a little bit of gut, like I'm not a youngster anymore. So the way an appliance will adhere to my abdomen, that can change a little bit as I gain weight. But you know, with diet, I think weight can easily be maintained in most cases.
Thanks, Kevin. Barbara, or Brenda, come share with us.
So, hi, everybody. So if you were a patient at Sinai, we do have an outpatient dietitian. Her name is Bonnie, and either your surgeon or gastroenterologist or myself can make a referral through to them. And appointments can be by telephone or virtual. They don't always have to be in person, but that is an option. And I think one thing when we're talking about weight going up and down, I think a lot of times, a lot of our patients, whether it be a pelvic pouch or have an ostomy, tend to be a little dehydrated. So there, sometimes your weight goes up and down with that, but sage advice from Dr. Cohen when I first started working with him 40 years ago was he told me that most IBD patients, 99% of them have a degree of dehydration every day. So we've come a long way with electrolytes and supplements, and that's one thing the dietitians can also replacement.
Great. Thank you. We're actually going to take one question here in the auditorium, and then Paul, you're going to wrap us up. And I know we've got 2 minutes here, so we're keeping it snappy. Kevin, please. Question from the room.
First, before my question, just to the person I was asking about the J pouch versus ileostomy, I had temporary J pouch in 2002, then J pouch, and now looped ileostomy, and the loop is so much better, more control. The ileostomy is better because I can choose when to go instead of running. Like my J pouch was horrible. There would be times that I would have bowel movements in the car or on the TTC even, or at school when I was in school. So that really sucked. And cycling, I'd have to bring my bike into the handicap washroom if I'm going for a bike ride, which would be difficult versus now, I don't know if you should do this, but I empty my bag in a bush when I'm going biking, and I don't care. And I've biked from here to Ottawa. So that was, so it's easier now, a lot of ways. My question is maybe pouchitis, but like I have sessions or weeks and months maybe where I have bowel movements in bed overnight and I don't know why. And like, so I have a looped ileostomy. So I have the bag and still bowel movements, and it's frustrating and annoying and a lot of laundry. So I don't know if that's something that can be treated or what can be done about that.
You have a quick two thoughts on that? Yeah, John, please.
We'll both answer. We'll both be in the picture together. So I think it depends when you eat. If you eat late because you're working late, then it's going to come out later on, depending on the transit time. So if you don't eat late, then you have a chance to clear your colon, so you wouldn't have to go.
But Kevin, you're getting, you still have ileostomy.
I have ileostomy, I have a loop.
You're passing some mucus or stool?
No, like, so during the day, it's almost always through my bag. And at night, I get bag and bum, and it's substance coming out my bum, like full on like diarrhea bowel movements.
I don't know how to answer.
Yeah, I think you need to speak with a medical professional on that one. I'm sorry, that's not a full answer. But I do also want to recognize it's the top of the hour. Paul, can I encourage that you reach out to Brenda with your question? We would still, and then she can share it with one of us to get it answered. I don't know why I'm out of focus again, guys. I apologize. But on behalf of all of us, we just want to say a huge thank you for your questions, for your interest in sharing best practices. I think this has been, we didn't get to any of our pre-prepared stuff because you were so full of great questions. So a huge thank you. As Brenda shared, we will be taking the summer off. You'll see news about picking this up again in September.
Email if they have topics they want to discuss.
And certainly if you've got topics that you would like to see sessions focused on, if you think an AMA would be useful, again, please do share that with Brenda because it's really helpful in how we shape these because ultimately they're for you. So with that, we'll say a wonderful good evening. Thank you all, and we'll see you again in the fall. Bye all.
You're amazing.